Howdy howdy, and welcome to a new kind of video that I'm trying out. Here I'll be comparing wins to losses and analyzing the differences between two matches to see what made the difference between taking that hard L and getting that fat dub. Let's dive right in. I'm playing my favorite deck at the moment, Selesnya Rabbits. It brought me to Mythic this month. These rabbits don't back down from anything. They mean business. And when you get a good hand, it feels nigh unstoppable. But, as is often the case, there are exceptions. Take, for example, everyone's favorite deck to hate, Mono Red. Mono Red is nothing new, but the sheer speed with which these mighty mice can take you down is downright disgusting. If you've been grinding the ladder at all lately, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Turn 3 blowouts with zero chance for interaction. And I'll admit that I dabbled in those dark arts for a time before choosing the light, and it felt dirty. That's not what I'm here to talk about today. Today I want to examine the differences and similarities between a win and a loss against Mono Red. What does a win against Mono Red look like? What makes the difference between an absolute blowout and a convincing victory? Let's find out. It starts with the mulligan. In Game A, I had to mulligan twice to find a decent starting hand, while in Game B, I was granted a good hand from the get-go. Now, card advantage doesn't matter that much against an aggro player, but having to play down 2 cards does put you at a distinct disadvantage. Should everything trade evenly, and typically it does, I lose in Game A. But all hope is not lost already. I have a good 1-2-3 curve if I can find a land. And in Game B, I have a 1-drop into 2-drop with the strong likelihood of drawing into something to play on turn 3. So, all in all, we're in a decent starting position in both games. Both hands have the chance to win. It's also worth noting that in Game B, I went first, while in Game A, I went second. Especially in Ditto matches, this alone can be the deciding factor in who wins and who loses. However, a lot depends on how well the opponent drew. Let's see how these first few turns play out. So, Game A turned out to be pretty much game over from the beginning. But why? Well, despite having a blocker with reach in Phineas, the opponent had the stone cold nuts to not only save the slick shot from dying to the Phineas, but they also had the burn together to capitalize on their big buff bird. Games like this feel hopeless, and that's because they are. Sometimes the aggro deck draws the nuts and there's nothing you can do to stop them. This is simply the cost of playing the game. But for every unsatisfying blowout, there is an uber satisfying denial. With that in mind, let's take a look at Game B. While it is true that in Game A I did have a stronger turn 1 and turn 2, in Game B it was my turn to draw the nuts. 1, 2, 3, baby. It doesn't get much cleaner than that. And this time, my opponent seems to have drawn significantly more creatures than buffs. And for a deck that's built around the notion of buffing your creatures into the heavens above, that's a death sentence. And so, they threw one last desperate attack my way and conceded. So what's so different about Game B that I won so convincingly while with a similar draw I lost in Game A? Let's take a look at that. When it comes right down to it, the most significant factor is board presence. The game-defining play was buffing my board twice with Phineas. Not only did he provide +8/+8 worth of stats to the board, but he also traded with a Heartfire hero while forcing a Felonious Rage to be used defensively. After that point, I had full control of the board, even after a miscalculation which cost me 2 units. My creatures were steadily getting stronger and stronger with permanent stat buffs to the point where the aggro player simply couldn't keep up. Meanwhile, their creatures required constant resources to be pumped into them to trade efficiently with my buff bunnies. Eventually they ran out of buffs, and my board remained, and the game is mine. So is that it then? Not exactly. This being a card game, there's a certain amount of luck that's involved. How well did my opponent draw? How well did I draw? And most importantly, who's going first? All things being even, the player who goes first will win. But don't just forfeit every game you go second just because you're not going first. I have a distinct memory of winning a game spectacularly while going second in a mono-red Ditto match. It was glorious. That being said, sometimes you simply don't get lucky and you lose because of it. That's the nature of the game. But this factor of luck doesn't truly determine most games. More often than not, it's a certain decision or a particular sequence of plays that determines who wins and who loses. Even when you're playing an aggro deck, one decision can make the difference. So what's the final verdict? What made the difference between these two games? Well, I was able to establish a strong board presence in Game B, while in Game A, my board was simply no match for the buffs of the enemy. And that's the trick to beating aggro. Either remove their creatures as they play them, or present them with a board that is too big for them to handle, and hope that they didn't draw the Stone Cold nuts. There you have it, folks. Hope you enjoyed this analysis as much as I enjoyed making it. If you made it this far, you're an absolute legend. And I hope that your coffee is always the right temperature. Good luck and have fun out there, y'all. And I'll see you in the next vid.